Hi everyone, I'm presenting on war, conflicts, and terrorism in 2 minutes. I'll cover what it means, 2 pros with a screenshot, 2 cons with screenshots, and detailed examples. Let's jump in. Wars are organized battles like nations clashing or civil wars. Conflicts are disputes over things like land, power, not always violent. Terrorism is a deliberate attack to terrify people into giving in, often targeting civilians for political gain. It's violence with a purpose. First pro is security. Wars and counter-terrorism can stop threats cold. After 9/11, the U.S. and Afghanistan smashed Al-Qaeda's bases and kept America safe from big attacks for decades. It's not just defense, it's taking the fight to them, disrupting plans before they hatch. Here's my screenshot from Britannica, War on Terrorism. It shows the massive military and intel push 9/11 to lock down security. My second pro is deterrence. Crushing enemies scares others off. When ISIS lost its land in Iraq and Syria, it didn't just weaken them, it showed groups worldwide that chaos doesn't pay. It's a signal, step up or get smashed. My spec is wars boost security. The evidence to this is Afghanistan's Taliban fell in 2001, stopping Al-Qaeda's momentum. It brought time and safety. My first con is human cost. Wars and anti-terrorism campaigns kill and uproot way too many. The Iraq war left 200,000 civilians dead, millions homeless, and families shattered, ruined, all for shaky gains. It's not just numbers, it's lives destroyed. Here's a UN screenshot from a new era of conflict. It says the wars drop, but suffering still huge with massive conflicts. My second con is escalation. Fighting breeds in more fighting. Drone strikes in Yemen kill terrorists, but it also hits kids, pushing survivors to join groups like the Taliban out of rage. It's a cycle. Solve one problem, create 3. My screenshot from our world data shows terrorism that's spiking in places like the Middle East. Proof the cost keeps climbing. My second spec is wars hurt too much. Evidence. Iraq displaced 9 million. It's chaos, not peace. Suffering trumps benefits, so wars and terrorism.
Every place in the world has different amounts of people. This is known as a population, and it is in a constant rate of change. Many move from one country to another, which would be called migration. They might leave due to a job opportunity or overall better quality of life. When we learn about population and migration, we get a better idea of how the world is changing and how the different type of people shape the environments around them. One of the many benefits of population and migration is the way it affects the economy. Many of the people that might be migrating to a new country can bring different attributes and skill sets they can use to get a good job. This adds more workers to the economy and helps businesses grow. The act of migration and increasing populations can bring new culture and ideas. When people of a variety of backgrounds come together, they bring unique goods, dances, languages, and foods, all from different cultures. It can even lead to new styles in arts such as dancing, singing, and fashion. But with the positives comes the negatives. A high rate of migration can lead to overcrowding. Places such as New York or Miami are perfect examples of an overcrowded population. When so many people move to the same area, there might be a lack of room, housing, and resources for everyone. It also leads to more people competing over jobs and services. Another problem that can come with migration is an increase in pollution. The more people, the more cars on the road. As many of us are aware, cars aren't too good for the environment. It can lead to dirty air, water pollution, and more garbage in the environment. According to an article written on migrationpolicy.org, immigrants boost overall economic growth by expanding the labor force and increasing consumer spending. The foreign-born also start new businesses at higher rates than U.S.-born individuals. From an economics perspective, it is right to infer that immigration gives a country's economy a large boost for the better, and without it, the change might even be drastic. As seen on globalcitizen.org, in reality, immigrants change culture for the better by introducing new ideas, expertise, customs, cuisines, and art. Far from erasing the existing culture, they expand it. From a cultural standpoint, it's clear that without cultures being spread all over the world, there is no diversity. Without migration, there would be ignorance toward other cultures. Immigrants and U.S.-born workers generally do not compete for the same jobs. The economists Michael Greenstone and Adam Looney wrote for the Hamilton Project. Instead, many immigrants complement the work of U.S. employees and increase their productivity. All in all, migration plays a significant role in shaping both economies and cultures all around the world. While it brings clear benefits like boosting economic growth and introducing new ideas, it also has challenges like environmental pressure and overcrowding. As the migration of people all over the world continues, it's important to find a balance between embracing the positive aspects of migration while keeping in mind the negatives.
Government is a system that manages and leads a country, region, or city. It creates and enforces laws, provides services, and protects the rights of its citizens. Whether we're talking about a democracy, monarchy, or another form, governments play a huge role into shaping our daily lives and future opportunities. Governments help stabilize society by funding roads, creating jobs, managing inflation, and investing in industries. A BBC article 4 explains how public policies and infrastructure projects can lift economies and prevent crisis. These actions, from an economical point of view, create systems that allow businesses to thrive and people to access opportunities. With stronger infrastructure and financial planning, countries are better prepared to handle long-term challenges. They also provide essential services like public education, healthcare, clean water, and emergency response. It is clear that government decisions affect everything from school funding to neighborhood safety. This connects deeply to a social and political point of view, where the government becomes responsible for maintaining fairness, equality, and public well-being. By ensuring access to basic needs, governments help build more equal and just societies. One of the biggest concerns is corruption or the abuse of power. When leaders aren't held accountable, they can make decisions that could harm citizens or limit freedom. History and current events show that unchecked authority can lead to censorship, inequality, or even violence. Government systems can also become insufficient due to the layers of paperwork, outdated technology, or poor communication. A Miami Herald article highlights an example of delays in disaster response and social programs. These issues, from a technological point of view and a political point of view, show how slow systems can prevent urgent problems from being quickly solved and efficiently solved. And if we can't trust a system that is meant to protect and guide us, then what is government really for? International organizations are groups formed by multiple countries to solve global problems and promote cooperation. Groups like the United Nations, World Health Organizations, and NATO play critical roles in areas like global health, peacekeeping, and economic development. They work across borders to help make the world safer, healthier, and more stable. International organizations like the UN work to prevent war and help resolve conflicts peacefully. Show how they send peacekeepers and negotiate treaties to protect civilians and maintain stability. These efforts, from a political and social point of view, create a platform where nations can work together rather than against each other. With this global cooperation, many conflicts could grow into larger and more dangerous crises. Organizations like the World Health Organization help countries deal with disease outbreaks, distribute vaccines, and help health systems. In an NPR report, it is shown how smaller countries received support during the pandemic when they couldn't access vaccines on their own. From a health and economic point of view, this kind of aid saves lives and prevents long-term damage to global development. When the richer nations assist the poorer ones, everyone benefits because health issues don't respect borders. Even though they aim to help, international organizations often rely on funding and cooperation from member countries. This dependence can cause slow decision-making, especially during fast-moving crises like natural disasters or armed conflicts. Their impact, while important, is sometimes held back by bureaucracy and politics. Some international groups are criticized for giving too much power to wealthier or more influential nations. A Miami Herald article explains that larger economies often push their own interests over global fairness. This creates imbalance, especially from a political and economical point of view, where smaller nations struggle to have their voices heard. If global organizations are meant to unite the world, how effective can they really be when not everyone has an equal seat at the table?
Space exploration. What is space exploration? My name is Ivan Chasbbar, and today I'll be speaking about space exploration and its associated industries. In this 2-minute presentation, I'll speak about these 2 pros and 2 cons of this topic. Let's stop wasting time, let's go. Let's start with the benefits from a technological standpoint. Space exploration has driven major innovations. Think about GPS systems, accurate weather forecasting, or even mobile phones in your pocket. All of these were made possible or improvised by space-based research. Advances in transportation, navigation, and also stem from technologies originally developed for space missions. The exploration of space has also led to critical medical breakthroughs. Tools like MRI and CT scans were refined thanks to space tech. We've also seen the development of advanced surgical techniques and improved methods for detecting and potentially preventing cancer. But it is important to recognize the downsides too. From an economic standpoint, space missions are incredibly costly. Billions are spent on launching space rockets, building equipment, and potentially supporting ongoing research, which can place a heavy burden on national budgets. This level of spending can create a financial strain on national budgets, especially for countries with limited resources. It raises the question of whether such investments are sustainable or responsible when weighed against the domestic needs of countries. Ethically, we face tough questions. Could the money and effort spent on space be better used to address issues here on Earth, like homelessness, hunger, or public health? It's a valid concern that continues to challenge how we prioritize our resources. In conclusion, space exploration has undeniably pushed human progress forward, but it also comes with significant costs and ethical dilemmas. The key is finding a balance between reaching for the stars and taking care of our home planet. As we continue to develop advanced technologies and set our sights on distant worlds, we must remain mindful of the environmental, economic, and social impacts here on Earth. Space exploration should inspire unity and innovation, not divert attention from urgent global issues. By pursuing discovery with responsibility, we can ensure that our journey beyond Earth enhances life both out there and here at home.
Hello. In this video, I will be discussing the prison and rehabilitation system. What is the prison and rehabilitation system, you may ask, and what does it do? Well, when a person is incarcerated and placed in prison for a crime, there is always a way to get out, unless if said person committed an extremely heinous crime. But to fit in the real world, rehabbing yourself in prison is extremely beneficial. For starters, rehabbing before the end of your sentence is important because it lets you re-enter society as a law-obeying citizen. According to an article from the Times Union, prison rehab programs significantly reduce recidivism, with one example showing just a 9.9% reoffense rate for participants versus 24% for those who didn't take part in the rehab programs. From a social standpoint, rehabilitation lets a convicted criminal disguise themselves as a normal civilian that works like everyone and acts like everyone, plus it is proven that it is safer for society. Additionally, these rehabilitation programs are extremely beneficial because it doesn't solely focus on punishing them, but by restoring them. It is important that the person who has been behind bars for a while gets to live their life when they get released. The University of Penn State offers a restorative justice initiative which focuses on empowering and supporting system-impacted individuals through education and civic engagement. From an individualistic perspective, this lets the prisoner redevelop their brain so that when they reach the outside world, they are not a complete danger to society, and so that they are somebody that people can actually talk to and communicate with and interact with in the real world. However, not everything about rehab programs are positive. There are some things that can cause harm. Some offenders will try to just cheat the system. Not only can they behave well through the process, but they can manipulate their way through it to plead for a lesser sentence. According to an article from the Associated Press, the New Jersey Office of the Public Defender reported that the state's parole board often denies release based on confidential evidence, such as psychological reports and risk assessments. So when a prisoner gets through the program and tries to achieve an early release, 9 times out of 10, it will get denied. From a moral vantage point, false assessments and early exit for an offender can be easily manipulated, which can cause new crimes, and it ultimately damages the trust of the justice system. But wait, that's not all. These programs aren't made for free. Budgeting is required to make them succeed. Lots of budgeting. Governments or organizations may be hesitant to allocate large amounts of money to rehabilitation programs because the return on investment doesn't always materialize quickly. As a matter of fact, according to a report done by the California Health Institute, it shows that a state audit revealing that despite a $64 million budget increase between 2013 and 2019 for rehabilitation programs in California prisons, recidivism rates remained high. From an economic point of view, there is no need to spend so much income on these programs if at the end there is no downfall in crime rate. The audit also revealed that the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation did not ensure consistent quality or appropriate placement of inmates in these programs. Easy bypasses can ruin any state.
This world wouldn't be where it is today without the mainstream companies that serve the country. Organizations like Netflix, which normalized online streaming, or Amazon, which brought online shopping to life, needed advertisements to blow up on the internet. Advertising is one of the most effective ways to introduce a brand to a wide audience, whether it's through billboards, TV ads, and even social media. The goal is to make the brand recognizable. That's the ultimate goal. The more people that see the logo, the slogan, and hopefully at the end the products, the more familiar and trustworthy the brand becomes. For example, think about businesses such as Nike or Apple, which are generally shown on TV. They are the leaders and the most recognizable in their own respective industries. According to a study done by the Miami Herald, 59% of consumers prefer to buy new products from brands they are familiar with. From an ethical point of view, this shows that the more a brand is advertised and seen, the more likely it is that consumers will consider it when purchasing a product from that brand. Although popularity is important, the ultimate goal of advertising is to kickstart sales, and when done effectively, advertising can create a significant boost in revenue. By increasing awareness and interest in a product, advertising can encourage potential customers to make a purchase. For example, an advertiser's main goal is to lure in a buyer, no matter the cost. A Harvard Business Review article on the effectiveness of advertising found that advertising significantly boosts short-term sales for products by attracting new customers and reminding existing ones to repurchase. From an economical vantage point, reminding previous buyers or new ones to purchase their item is important. These hooks drive generational long-term sales for the company to set it up for success. Although all this sounds amazing, why don't more companies advertise regularly? If only all the industries can get it as easy as Nike or Amazon or any of the big boom businesses. But many of these small startups cannot afford to spend money on a commercial because it's a high-risk play. For example, the return on investment with these radio ads, the printed media, or just TV commercials in general can add up in debt and force new bloomers into bankruptcy at an instant. The Associated Press made a report that shows that the average cost of a 30-second TV commercial during prime time in the United States can range from $200,000 to over $2 million, depending on the network and time slot, obviously. From an economic standpoint, the financial investment required to make a commercial that interests the viewer is one of the many high risks that small companies are faced with. And even if it is a hit commercial, the money spent on not only the production but the publishing of it can put any small startup in jeopardy. It doesn't end there just yet. Many businesses use different marketing schemes to try and hook the watcher into buying a false product. Some advertising campaigns make false or exaggerated claims about a product's capabilities to generate interest from the watcher. This can lead to disappointing customers and increased returns on product. For example, some car brands paint their new models as environmentally friendly, kind of like the new Volkswagen diesel cars. However, upon inspection, they were failed due to the advanced software to cheat through emission tests. From a moral viewpoint, this move by Volkswagen not only hurts their rep, but also costs a lot of money due to the revenue of the advertisement not meeting expectations with what they paid. It is embarrassing, honestly, when these big name companies pull a stunt like this because some customers can bring these false statements to court, where the company can get sued. Morally, it is not right to make exaggerated advertisements due to the plethora of lawsuits that can single-handedly bring one company down.
Hi everyone, I'm presenting on surveillance and privacy in 2 minutes. I'll define it, give 2 pros, 2 cons, and detailed examples. Let's roll. Surveillance is a monitoring like cameras or data tracking for security control. Privacy is your right to keep your life private. Away from prying eyes, it's safety versus freedom. The first pro is crime prevention. Surveillance stops crime before it explodes. Cameras catch shoplifters and FBI webcams scan nab hackers, preventing data theft that could ruin lives. It's about staying ahead of trouble. Here's my screenshot from ASLU Surveillance Technologies. It says cameras help solve crimes, keeping us safe. Second pro is public safety. Surveillance and protects everyone. During COVID, tracking apps mapped outbreaks, cutting deaths, traffic cameras / accidents. It's a safety net for society, not for one person. Here's a screenshot from the National Institute of Justice video surveillance. It shows cameras boost public safety stats. My spec is surveillance boost security. Evidence is NSA tracking stop 9/11 style plots. It's fast and broad. Watching saves us. My first con is privacy erosion. Surveillance steals your secrets. Prism tap phones. Companies like Google track every move. Your data is not yours anymore. It's total exposure, no escape. Here's a Pew Research screenshot from the Americas and Privacy. It says most feel track daily, losing grip. The second con is power abuse. Surveillance empowers the wrong hands. Police misuse facial recognition to target people. Firms sells your habits like Facebook does for cash, not safety. It's control, not help. My spec is surveillance kills freedom. Evidence is the Prism tracked millions, no consent. It's overreach, not protection, and privacy pays the price. So surveillance fights crimes and guards, but it guts privacy and risk abuse. These screenshots show the stakes. Thanks. Hi everyone, I'm presenting on food and water security in 2 minutes. I'll define it, give 2 pros with screenshots, 2 cons with screenshots, and detailed examples. Here we go. Food and water security is a reliable access to enough safe food and clean water for a healthy life. It's stable supplies like farms or wells versus shortages from droughts, conflict, or poverty. The first pro is improved health. Secure food and water fight sickness. Irritation grows more crops, cutting malnutrition. Clean water like in Africa drops cholera deaths. Is thriving, not just living. Here's my WHO screenshot from Water Sanitation Hygiene. It says safe water presents 1.4 million deaths a year. The second pro is economic growth. Stable supply sparks jobs. Farmers with water sell surplus like Asian rice market. Fishing booms with healthy rivers. It lifts whole economies. Here's a FAO screenshot from the State of Food Security. It shows agriculture power poor regions. My spec is security boosts lives. Evidence is the Utopia water cut child's deaths. It's quick impact. Stability pays. The first con is environmental strain. Security effort hurt nature. Over farming like India's aquifers dries up groundwater, dams chokes rivers life. It's a fix now, ruin later. Here's a WRI screenshot from water stress. It warns overusing water risk collapse. Second con is inequality. Security doesn't reach everyone. Big farms grab aid and slums like in Latin America go dry and hungry. It's not equal. It's rigged for the haves. Here's an Oxfam screenshot from Food and Water Justice. It says wealth gaps widen hunger. My spec is security harms balance. Evidence is that the India's aquifers fell 60% for cash crops. It's waste, not fairness. Equity loses. So, food and water security help health and wealth, but strain the earth and skip the poor. These screenshots prove its trade-off.
When you take medicine, do you ever wonder how it was tested or when it was made? The process of developing, manufacturing, and providing drugs is complex, with both benefits and challenges. Let's take a closer look. Before a drug reaches the public, it goes through years of testing to make sure it's safe and actually works. This protects people from harmful side effects and ensures that medicines do what they're supposed to do. Drug manufacturing allows life-saving treatments to be produced on a large scale, making it possible to fight diseases worldwide. From vaccines to cancer medications, these advancements have improved millions of lives. However, developing new drugs is extremely expensive and can take over a decade. The high cost of research and testing often leads to expensive medicines that many people can't afford. Now, not everyone has the same access to life-saving drugs. In some countries, medicine is too expensive or unavailable, leaving many people without the treatment they need. According to BBC Bitesize, the process of drug testing is strict, requiring multiple phases of trials before approval. While this ensures safety, it also slows down the availability of new treatments. From an economical standpoint, drug production is a major industry that brings in billions of dollars. However, high prices and manufacturing costs often make medicine a business rather than a basic human right. A New York Times article explains how global trade policies affect where drugs are made and how much they cost. Changes in tariffs and regulations can impact drug availability in different countries. From a social standpoint, access to medicine can determine the quality of life for millions. When drugs are too expensive or unavailable, it creates major health inequalities. The Miami Herald reports that state governments are working on policies to lower drug prices and make them more accessible. However, the process is complicated and faces pushback from pharmaceutical companies. Drug testing, manufacturing, and provision play a huge role in healthcare, but they come with major challenges. The question is, how can we balance safety, affordability, and accessibility? What if the traditions that shaped our culture started disappearing? Traditional arts have been passed down for generations, but in today's world they face challenges that put their future at risk. Let's explore the pros and cons of traditional arts and their impact on society. First of all, traditional arts are a direct link to history, keeping alive the techniques, stories, and values of past generations. They ensure that cultural knowledge isn't lost but instead passed down through craftsmanship, music, and performance. These art forms bring people together, fostering a shared sense of belonging. From indigenous weaving techniques to folk dances, traditional arts helps communities maintain their unique identities in a rapidly changing world. However, traditional arts can sometimes be slow to evolve, making it difficult to keep up with modern trends and technology. This resistance to change can limit their relevance and accessibility to younger generations. As traditional arts gain popularity, they can be exploited for profit, stripping them of their cultural significance. From mass-produced, quote, handmade crafts to fashion brands borrowing indigenous designs without permission, commercialization often leads to cultural misrepresentation. According to a BBC report, many traditional artists struggle to compete in a world dominated by digital media and mass production. While some adapt, others find it challenging to maintain authenticity while staying relevant. From a cultural standpoint, traditional arts are more than just a creative expressions. They are a vital part of identity, history, and storytelling. Losing them means losing pieces of who we are. In a New York Times article, it highlights how folk art and modernism often clash, raising questions about whether traditional art can evolve without losing its core essence. From a social standpoint, traditional art creates connections between generations, but they're not supported. Younger people may lose interest, leading cultural gaps in communities. The Miami Herald notes that festivals and local initiatives are working to preserve traditional arts, proving that with the right support, these art forms can continue to thrive. Traditional arts hold immense cultural and social value, but they also face significant challenges. The question is, how can we preserve them while allowing them to evolve?
Censorship is when content like information or art is blocked or controlled because it's considered offensive, harmful, or politically sensitive. It's often done to protect people from the public or national security, but it also raises the big question about free speech, creativity, and the role of media in democracies. One good reason for censorship is to protect national security. Governments sometimes censor information that could harm the country, like details about military during wartime, to stop enemies from gaining useful information. For existence during World War II and the Gulf War, censoring military kept critical details away from the enemy. UNESCO regularly looks at how countries manage censorship in these situations. Censorship also protects children and vulnerable groups by blocking things like violence, explicit sexual content, or hate speech. It prevents harmful material from influencing young people or those who are easily affected. The European Union has strict rules for media content, especially TV, to protect kids from inappropriate material. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation also emphasizes the importance of regulating media to keep vulnerable people safe. However, a big downside of censorship is that it can limit freedom of expression. The media and art are important for sharing ideas and challenge societal norms. When censorship is used, it can stop journalists, filmmakers, writers, and artists from speaking freely. It also sometimes leads to self-censorship out of fear. For example, an AI Weiwei in China who faced censorship for his art criticized the government. This kind of issue is often reported by the New York Times, which covers how the government used censorship to silence people who disagree with them. Another downside is that governments or powerful groups can misuse censorship to control public opinion or shut down political oppositions. This can harm democratic values where the media and arts can serve their true purpose. For example, censorship can be used to silence critics, especially during the war in Ukraine. UNESCO often reports on press freedom and censorship, showing how it affects countries, for both the authoritarian government and those with the democracies. State institutions are organizations that help run a country, like the government, courts, and police. These institutions are important because they can help keep things organized and safe, but they also may have some problems. One good thing about state institutions is that they help keep everything stable. They make sure rules are followed and problems are solved fairly. For example, police make sure people follow the law, and courts make sure justice is served when people have arguments. According to an article on local news website, local governments play a big role in keeping peace and making sure society runs smoothly. When these institutions work well, people feel safe because they know systems are in place to keep order. Another good thing is that state institutions protect people's rights and freedoms. For example, laws are made to protect people from being treated unfairly, like from discrimination, as stated in the role of institutions in state government from National Policy Review Journal. When states institutions work properly, they can help create a society where everyone's rights are protected and people can live freely without the fear of being untreated. But these institutions aren't always perfect. One problem is that they can be slow and complicated. Big government systems, things that can take a long time to get done, which frustrates people. For example, getting permits or going through legal process can take forever. On an article on local news, websites talk about how government systems often have a long wait and a lot of red tape, making it hard for people to get what they need. Another problem is that sometimes people in the power abuse their positions. If state institutions aren't watched closely, officials might use their power for personal gain, which is called corruption. This can lead to unfair treatment and hurt people's trust in the government. In The Challenges of State Institutions of Global Governance of International Relations Review, the articles explain that states institutions lack transparency or checks and balances, corruption can happen. In these big issues, because it can make people feel like the system isn't working for everyone.
A cornerstone of modern society. But what are they exactly? And why do they spark both praise and debate? Human rights are the fundamental freedoms and protections that belong to every individual. Simply by virtue of being human, these rights protect freedoms like speech, religion, and the right to a fair trial. They are designed to be universal, ensuring dignity and equality for all. A primary advantage of human rights is their role in safeguarding individual liberties. They empower people to express their opinions, practice their beliefs, and live without undue interference. For instance, the First Amendment in the U.S. Constitution protects freedoms concerning religion, expression, assembly, and the right to petition. This article shows how the Civil Rights Act helped fight discrimination in the U.S., proving how human rights can create real progress. From an ethical stance, human rights represent a universal agreement that every person deserves dignity, respect, and fairness, regardless of where they live, what they believe, or who they are. Another significant benefit is the promotion of social equality. Human rights frameworks aim to eliminate discrimination and ensure equal opportunities, regardless of race, gender, or background. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 in the United States exemplifies this by prohibiting discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. This article shows that this law didn't just promote equality, it also protected people's right to vote, speak freely, and live without segregation. It gave millions of personal freedom to participate fully in society. However, a downside of human rights is that they're not enforced equally across the globe. In some countries, rights exist on paper but are ignored in practice. People may be denied basic freedoms depending on where they live or which government is in power. From a social stance, human rights serve as a tool to challenge inequality and injustice within communities. Another issue is that economic inequality can limit access to human rights. For example, the right to education may exist, but if schools are underfunded or healthcare is unaffordable, those rights aren't truly accessible. Wealth gaps often create real world limits to rights. This article highlights that in some countries, basic freedoms like the right to protest or speak out aren't guaranteed. It underscores how vital human rights are in protecting those freedoms globally. So while human rights aim to create fairness and dignity for all, applying them fairly is still a work in progress. Understanding both the pros and cons help us push for better. Have you ever wondered how we consume information today?
Is print media still important or is digital media taking over? Let's dive into the impact of both. Print media has been around for centuries, offering a tangible way to connect with news and stories. According to a recent NPR poll, books still remain a favorite for many readers, showing that print is far from dead. On the other hand, digital media is fast and always accessible. You can read news, check social media, and even stream videos, all from your phone or computer. It's no surprise that more people are turning to their screens for information. However, print media has its challenges. In many areas, small local newspapers are struggling to stay afloat. In fact, NPR recently highlighted how a small town paper in New York is fighting to keep printing, despite a shift to digital platforms. Meanwhile, digital media isn't perfect either. With so much information online, it can be hard to know what's trustworthy. Fake news and misinformation spread quickly on social media, making it difficult to find reliable sources. A recent article from NPR talks about the challenges and opportunities both print and digital media face. It's clear that both have their strengths and weaknesses. From a literature standpoint, books and print materials continue to hold a unique value. Many readers still prefer the physical experience of holding a book and turning the pages, as it creates a deeper connection with the content. The NPR poll about books shows that readers aren't ready to give up print. Even as digital options grow, people are holding onto printed word. From a social standpoint, digital media has changed how we interact with each other. We're more connected than ever, but sometimes that connection can feel less personal. People are using their devices to communicate, but sometimes miss the face to face experiences that print media once offered. To wrap it up, both print and digital media have their pros and cons. Print gives us that personal touch, especially with books and local news, while digital media keeps us connected and informed quickly. Both have a place in our lives, and it's all about finding the right balance. Thanks for listening.
What if the places that celebrate art and culture started disappearing? Art venues are crucial for creativity and community, but they're facing major challenges. Let's break it down. Art venues give artists the space to push boundaries and create innovative works, making them essential for the evolution of art. Museums, galleries, and theaters do more than showcase art. They educate, but they help people understand history, explore new movements, and appreciate diverse cultures. However, many venues are struggling financially. Tight budgets can lead to cutbacks and even closures, reducing the access people have to these places. As art venues become more popular, rising rents and the push for commercial success can make them less accessible, pricing out local artists and low-income visitors. The BBC reports that many venues now rely on corporate sponsorships and ticket sales, often prioritizing commercial success over unique or community-focused projects. Culturally speaking, art venues are key for keeping and sharing traditions. They help people understand each other and offer rooms for discussion, but without proper backing, these places could lose their diversity, which is what makes them special. The New York Times also highlights efforts by venues to become more inclusive by offering free programs and collaborating with unrepresented communities. From a social standpoint, art spaces connect different cultures and promote understanding, helping to build stronger communities. On top of that, the Miami Herald reports that cities like Miami are supporting local art through grants and public spaces, helping local artists thrive. Art institutions shape society, but they face extremely difficult challenges. How can we keep them accessible financially and encourage creativity? That's the question for the future.